Hi, everyone. It's Amy Poehler, and I'm launching a new podcast called Good Hang. In preparation for that, I asked some of my friends to send in some videos and give me some advice.
Just be yourself and the guests will come.
Don't be the celebrity that this is their sixth thing they're doing.
I love true crime and cooking podcasts. Is there any way you could combine the two?
Well, everyone has an opinion and a podcast. So join me for Good Hang. It's rough out there. We're just trying to lighten it up a little.
Sorry, that was awkward. I should have done a fist pump point thing. Thank you to Loon by Atlassian for sponsoring this. Thank you to the Red Sox for winning today. It's like destiny. So we've done a lot of these live rewatchable shows. We have never come to Boston, Massachusetts. I want to introduce to you, well, he's from Philly, but it's fine. Chris Ryen. Tortured Jets fan, host of The Big Picture, Sean Fennessey. For the first time ever, the four of us with this guy, Ryen Russillo. So we were gonna do a live rewatchables about Good Will Hunting, but Russillo wanted to do 2 hours on Stephen A. and LeBron, so we're offering. Were those guys gonna work it out? What's happening?
I feel like that's done.
Okay, good. No, we're doing Good Will Hunting because we're in Boston. We got this Coolidge Corner movie theater. We're doing heist movies and Boston movies this weekend, including this one. We did this on the Rewatchables first year. We didn't have a lot of the categories yet, so we're doing it again. And for me, I'm gonna do Boston movie Mount Rushmore quickly. I don't know if there's a right answer, but for me, the verdict, Good Will Hunting, and The Town have to be in the 3, and then I think the 4th spot's arguable. Is there anyone that has to be in there for you, Russillo?
Well, everyone's gonna yell The Departed, but I don't. I like The Town so much better than The Departed. I'm glad you went that way.
Yeah. How about you, Sean?
Celtic Pride and Fever Pitch.
Pick one. Chris?
I don't have anything cute. It's The Departed. Even though a lot of it is shot in New York, it's still The Departed. Or Toronto.
Yeah, when we did The Departed, we had a lot of thoughts about Nicholson's Boston accent, which was from the Bronx. What part of New York was that accent actually from? I know this is a big thing for me and Russillo.
Yeah, Wahlberg, not a close friend, but we were doing promotion for Patriots Day.
You guys both love fitness, though. I mean, you have a lot in common.
Yeah, true.
I do. I always love how really big celebrities end interviews in a way that you're he's like, hey man, maybe next time we'll just do it in person, we'll get a workout in. And I was like, awesome. And then he said he closes the Zoom and Cerruti and I'm like, that's never gonna happen. But he had a great rule, because accents will be a big part of this discussion, I said, when you were casting for Patriots Day, what did you tell everybody? And he was like, you have one chance. And then if I don't like it, you're just gonna talk like a normal person. And I think it's a great rule.
It's a good rule.
But
and
nobody
we
was
got
gonna say
better
that
at
to
it.
Jack.
Yeah, the last 15 years, I feel like we've gotten better at it, especially movies like Gone Baby Gone and The Town. They actually started using locals. So we're doing better.
Bill, wasn't it on the Departed pod that we talked about the combat zone?
That's where we were all afternoon.
Yeah, Chris and Sean didn't believe me when I was telling them the combat zone stories. I had to send them pictures. Sometimes it'll be on Twitter. I'll be like, combat zone photo. Different times. I mean, this place, it used to be Avalon and Axis. I was more partial to Avalon, which I think you were too, CR, right?
Yeah.
Access was a little bit of a different crowd, but yeah, now it's House of Blues. So, Good Will Hunting, Damon and Affleck. Let's do the backstory of this. This is Sean, one of the great Hollywood out of nowhere, although it wasn't really out of nowhere because they'd both been in some movies, but one of the great bet on yourself moments ever, correct?
Probably the greatest since Rocky, right?
Yeah. Anything else? Those are like the biggest
Charlie
two
Chaplin?
in the last 50 years. I was living in Boston when this was happening. Were you here then? Or
No,
you
I was
were...
still in Vermont.
Okay. Because I remember there was an Improper Bostonian that came out with those guys on the cover when they were filming it. I'm going to say it was 96 or whenever. And it was like, these guys, local kids, took them years to get this made, and now they're making it, and they're so excited. I was like, oh man, I hope it works out for those wacky kids. Matt Damon, and I knew him from School Ties, knew Affleck from Dazed and Confused. Never thought it would work out for them like it did like this. And now this became the thing, Chris, that I don't remember a movie propelling two people at the same time like this.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that they still obviously have a place in their hearts for they're like, it's never gonna be like that again. And it's the most special movie I think either of them have ever made to themselves. When you read that oral history that was in Boston Magazine, you can tell they still think about this experience so clearly.
It's kind of like how we feel about Grantland.
Sure. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, they said there's in that oral history, the first day of shooting, they filmed some scene with Skarsgård and Robin Williams, and Damon and Affleck were watching it on the side, and they were both bawling, but not sad bawling, just so happy, because it was a 5-year odyssey, and the whole backwards of the story was that there's a year where they're in Davis Square, living there. They'd already spent their money from when they had sold it. It was in turnaround at Castle Rock. They're trying to get it made by anybody, and they're just kind of living in Somerville, doing these other parts and movies, not knowing if this movie was ever going to make it. And the biggest fear they had was they were going to age out of the characters, that they were going to hit their late 20s. Now, as we know from Hollywood, it doesn't matter if you age out of the characters. They could have probably been 45 and played this, but...
Well, wasn't one of the other things with Castle Rock that they wanted to be DiCaprio and Pitt?
There was a DiCaprio Pitt thing, and then there was a big thing with the script that the original script, this whole second part of it was a spy caper.
Yeah.
And the government's after them. And a couple people gave them the note, just lose the spy shit, man. Just do the first part. Do the first part of the script of The Therapist, and then that became the movie. And then it became unclear it seemed like Rob Reiner maybe had that note.
Yeah, Goldman had the note too, but
William Goldman,
it's
too.
still their script. But yeah, I think the NSA scene towards the end of the movie might be one of the remnants of that spy caper.
One of the funniest things with this movie was, as Castle Rock is basically just giving them the runaround, they get so pissed that these guys are doing that. They write this whole scene where I think Will Hunting gives Lambo a blowjob. And they just put it in there to see if anyone was reading it, and nobody would mention the scene. And they were like, these fuck guys aren't reading it. And then finally, when Harvey Weinstein read it for Miramax, complicated character these days.
He was like, leave that in.
Well, yeah, no. Affleck said he gave him 2 notes. I don't like the chess thing, because they had a part where Will Hunting played chess. He's like, get that out.
Dude, what else are you going to be awesome at?
Yeah, you're like a smart guy. And then, and he's like, in the blowjobs, they got to come out. And Damon Affleck were like, we've got our guy. This is it. He read all the way, and then it became, the big thing was Damon got The Rainmaker, which was a John Grisham book, when those Grisham books made it, and they told Harvey, and he was like, oh my God, those movies make $100 million, and then all of a sudden they're making it. So 5-year odyssey for this. Do you want to go through some of the elements of a Boston movie, Russillo? What are you looking for in a Boston movie? What are the essentials for you?
I think it would have made
Other
more
than Blake Lively.
Yeah, right. Although, with the newest information...
Stock up or stock down?
Yeah, right. Does anyone have Mint Mobile? What the fuck are you texting me from? I think for it to be, I don't know if we're fixing this movie because I think it was pretty good and people liked it, but I think Damon needs to be hammered on that red line towards the end.
Oh.
Sober to Braintree he's gonna wake up North Station going, what?
So he slumped over against the metal.
I don't
bar
think
thing.
that's I know he didn't have a car until the end.
I'm
Spoiler
so
alert.
lost right now.
No, but I really like that train shot, but I don't think Will Hunting is sober for that one.
CR, you lived here for 5 years. What
Yeah.
do you need in a Boston movie? What are the essentials?
I think this movie captures it. It's the you think you're better than me. It's all over those 4 guys, and they're constantly fighting against their their lot in life, and Will's their like shining star who can break out of it.
How about you, Fennessey?
I think they should have moved it to New York. I feel like they didn't get like really a gritty story, a true story about living in a real city, you know?
Oh my God. Fennessey lost the crowd. Jesus. I wrote a couple things down that I think all the Boston movies have that worked. They use the city, like different parts of the city. It's always a staple. They get the accents right. You got about at least 90% with the accents,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if we want to be real difficult, I think in the Boston Common scene, which is an incredible scene, which I know we'll get to, but Williams has a couple.
Williams stumbles with it.
He loses the reins.
Wins the Oscar. Yeah. Unbelievable
It's fine.
performance.
I'm not saying we should, take it away.
The R's kind of come and go. Hauser, I think, knew that he didn't have the accent, so he just he's more of a mystique, charisma part. But I think for the most part, they nailed it. Another thing, you just have to involve the Red Sox or Fenway somehow. There's an overhead shot of Fenway in this movie for no reason at all.
Yeah.
But you just have to do it.
By the way, what about Casey wearing the I Hate LA t-shirt?
Well, that's another one, yeah.
Right, but like that had to be a hand-me-down.
Yeah, his older brother had it from
I would
the
love
80s.
to be there the day they were like, Gus, we have to have a drone shot of
Right.
Fenway.
And I Hate LA shot. I think the bars are crucial. All the best Boston movies, like The Town has that. They filmed in Old Sully's. That was great. The bars in this movie, the L Street Tavern, like some of those, the Cambridge ones. And then I think you have to capture, it just has to feel the essence of people that live here. And I don't even know how to quantify that, but you know what I mean? Like there's people in this movie that just feel like Boston people that you know that somebody from Boston made it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I think, obviously the thing that's really cool in the Affleck scene with Damon, where he's just like, I'd kill to have what you have. Depending on where you're at, especially when you're younger and you're kind of like accepting your fate a little bit, I think they did a really good job with not overdoing it. Like those guys are about every day getting up, completing the task, beers afterwards, rinse, repeat, and they'd already accepted it. And they didn't do it in a way that, like, you just kind of already knew who they were without having to have, like, extra scenes of those guys doing the same stuff over and over again.
Here's two things they missed, Sean. Well, these are things that happen in Boston movies but don't happen in real life. The weather is always awesome in a Boston movie. Nobody is ever cold. It is just early May all the time. And then there's no traffic ever. You just get anywhere you want. The T is empty at all times. Doesn't matter what time of day, there's
always
nobody
a
else in
parking
there.
spot.
Yeah. And the Common, you just walk around, grab a bench. Nobody's going to be there. Nobody's walking around. There's no ducks. Those are the four things that we have. Sean, let's talk about 97. One of the great movie years ever.
It is.
Where we launch Affleck and Damon. We have Titanic. We launch Leo and Winslet. We have peak James Cameron. Jack Nicholson wins the Oscar. Robin Williams wins an Oscar. And it just feels like Boogie Nights is out there. It feels like something's shifting. What's shifting?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it's like the simultaneous moment when movies are still the biggest thing in all of entertainment from the studio perspective, plus all the Sundance, kind of Tarantino, Paul Thomas Anderson era of guys are starting to get their chance to make big, expensive movies. So like Jackie Brown is this year, Chasing Amy is this year. There's also all that new class of generation combining with Titanic, the biggest fucking movie ever made, which is convenient. LA Confidential is this year. There's a bunch of movies. I'm not really riding for that as good as it gets. Nicholson win. That's not. We don't.
Yeah, we're gonna
acknowledge
litigate
one.
that later.
Yeah.
It's not one you rewatch a lot.
Yeah.
No.
There's also like even in the credits for this movie, there's Kevin Smith, there's Lawrence Bender, so they're all like these names from that indie scene pop up behind the scenes in this one.
Yeah, it's like when in the NBA when we just have like a class, and you're like, oh man,
Like Scoot's class.
25. Yeah. Like this year's class might be like that with all the guys in the 25 class. Or you have like in football, you have like the quarterback class. You just look at the guys in 97 range. It's like, oh man, we were loaded.
I was listening to you guys, I think when you did the Pulp Fiction stuff, and the story of this kind of indie film, but obviously like once people got involved and it just became this blockbuster, but you can kind of like lose sight of the origin part of it. But I still think like we're only a few years removed from that, where people all of a sudden wanted these these movies that felt smaller scale. And like the budget for this is nothing, but it's funny that it worked as kind of an indie movie, but at the same time, like you could have seen it cast with all eight. Like the story just still works. So it doesn't feel like you're watching Slacker or something where like, okay, did you guys shoot this on VHS? But there was just a demand for all of these years after that run of, I don't know how it falls in, but it's kind of like a hybrid of those two.
Do you remember your Damon Affleck thoughts in '97 heading into this movie?
I don't. I mean, I think I remember seeing Affleck in Dazed and be like, that guy's a prick. He seems like that'll be like what he does in the movies.
Oh, Banyan.
But it wasn't like I was like, these two guys are marked for superstardom for the next 30 years.
Damon was in Courage Under Fire, and it was like, who is that guy?
Lost a bunch of weight.
Yeah, that was. I remember that very vividly. And then that was a movie with Denzel Washington and Meg Ryan, and people were like, who's that guy? So that was a good sign.
So he's in School Ties and plays like the most reprehensible, preppy anti-Semite probably ever captured in a boarding school movie. And he was so reprehensible in that when you would see him after, you'd be like, oh, that guy from School Ties, he's a fucking prick. And the Will Hunting thing finally, and losing $1 million for Courage Under Fire, Affleck to me was just the Dazed and Confused guy. And then he was in Chasing Amy, which I thought he was really good in, but you know, it wasn't like there was a huge history, right? Do you have a history with them, Russillo?
No, the only thing that's really funny about the Affleck part of it is he went to UVM and dropped out. So I remember everybody at this year had like left. I was like, hey, we're all staying here like 5 years, right? And then literally everybody was gone. And so then, you know, whatever. I hope everybody makes fun of me because I know Bill's ready too. I think that's when I started buying the Sid Field books. And I was like, let me figure this screenwriting thing out. That might be a path. And then in a classic Boston sense, like there was a couple guys from my group that are Massachusetts guys that made it as screenwriters. And then there was a bunch that wanted to be screenwriters that hated anybody else's success. So when this first started making the rounds, and you're like, what happened? And you're like, oh, this guy was a Harvard kid, and then I guess Damon was there 5 years and dropped out, so credit to him for staying the course. But it's like he got together with this dude that was at UVM, but then he chased some girl to California, and they're both Boston guys, and I guess they're like getting this movie made, and it's gonna be awesome. And then classic, again, Massachusetts dude in our friend group was like, they didn't even write it though, dude. It's like, they didn't even, like he already was ready, like preemptively, to be like, if this thing works out, fuck those guys. So that actually kind of influenced, because these guys were way more into it, and I was just buying books. I wasn't even reading them, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna figure this deal out. And it just was such a classic New England specific to this area where it's like a couple homegrown dudes about to make it great. And the immediate part of it was like, yeah, those guys actually suck though.
Well, what's funny is in Hollywood, that's happening too. They're battling this story that started going around that they didn't write it and that William Goldman rewrote it. He was one of the great screenwriters.
Yeah, like one of my friends was so excited when he was like, and he heard this.
Yeah.
He just felt better about himself that he hadn't done anything.
Right. I wonder if that's happened where on both coasts people are like, yeah, they didn't do it.
Yeah.
They didn't write it. Fuck these guys.
Well, also before the internet, you could really just like let that one rip and nobody really could check you. So you'd be like, I heard William Goldman wrote it. And everybody's like, all right.
Well, I feel bad in a way that we're even doing this early because I don't think any of us actually believe it.
No.
But if you go down the wormhole of this, because I remember like checking up on it, being like, is this real? I'm like, okay, they didn't write it. I'm doing great.
Right.
I mean, it's such a fucked up thing when you do when you're younger. And the whole argument was, so these guys just out of nowhere write this Oscar award-winning screenplay and then they don't write again? But I mean, the easy counter to that is, no, they just became two of the biggest movie stars in the world.
Two of the 10 biggest stars.
I love that what Goldman said when he finally fully addressed it. He was like, you know why they didn't write another movie after this? The same reason that Sylvester Stallone didn't write another movie, because it sucks to sit in your writer's hole by yourself when you can get paid $20 million to go act in a huge movie. It makes sense.
Yeah, Affleck's not on the set of Armageddon going, I really miss just being at Dunkin' Donuts working on a scene.
I love Microsoft Word, you know?
Well, there's so many touches that you can tell like two guys from here wrote it, but one of the things they talk about a lot is they wanted to write an awesome part for a famous actor. And that's the Sean character, the professor. So they had Morgan Freeman or Robert De Niro like in their head as they're writing that character, and they wanted him to have a couple big monologues, which he ends up having. And they end up getting Robin Williams, who starts out on Mork and Mindy. That's how I got to know him, which was a sitcom in the late 70s. But then has this whole movie career. He's in Garp and Birdcage, Good Morning Vietnam, Mrs. Doubtfire, Dead Poets Society. But then this is what he wins the Oscar for. And I still feel like Dead Poets might have been, what was the right Oscar for him?
Rewatching this movie this time, they
pretty good.
Are throwing alley-oops to him. He really has a lot of meaty scenes in this one.
It's pretty good. What do you think, Sean?
The genie in Aladdin is elite. That's high-level animated voice acting. I think this is probably the right choice. I love this part. I love this performance.
55-45 for me between Dead. I did some percentages for
you
Russillo.
can feel him when you're watching it, though, working so hard to not be super annoying talk show Robin Williams. He's he's got 9 guys holding him back from not riffing and doing a voice, which I appreciate.
It is possible when you put on those cardigans that he's wearing, you just become immediately more sensitive and thoughtful. This has been my dad's trick for 50 years. He's got 3 cardigans on all the time.
What do you
think,
start
Russillo?
wearing cardigans then?
Yeah.
Yeah, now that you mention your dad, it's like Robin Williams is a PED version of your dad.
Right, yeah, totally. What do you have for the Oscar for Robin Williams?
Well, I, like you, kind of grew up with him as Mork. And you're like, how long is this going to go?
Yeah.
But I don't know that I was 7 going, I don't like this guy's runway, Dad, Probably didn't look at the world that way back then. But I just love when anybody breaks out of the typecasting of what you are. And clearly, Garp was the first. I don't know if that's his first movie, but he's probably the first time.
It's his first big drama.
His first big part.
Yeah, we're going to do it on Rewatchables.
So now you're
at
starting
some
to realize. But no, I don't know if it's going to come up during the Dion Waiters Award thing, but on the most recent rewatch, and again, I watched it today because of travel and how it worked out. So I'm fresh off of it. I mean, every single scene with him,
he's crushing it.
Crushes and it works.
Yeah.
There's not one piece of dialogue with him where it's not setting up some other payoff. And I still think the Boston Commons scene, getting to write that and having hey, here's this whole explanation, and he's not going to come at him, but then it all just ties in together. That might be the most impressive part of the entire movie.
Yeah. Minnie Driver got nominated as well. She's really good in this. She had a nice little run. 4 or 5 movies in there that were great. Gus Van Sant, you want to do a little 30 seconds on this, Sean?
Yeah, he's incredibly important to this movie, and I don't think it would be nearly as good if it wasn't made by him, because his whole thing is the invisibility of the camera. You feel like you're watching real people. And every intimate conversation that probably would feel really overwritten by a bunch of 23-year-old guys from Boston don't feel that way at all. It feels super real because of the way that, they talk about it in that oral history, how he just sits next to the camera and lets them figure out how they want the part to go. He let Robin Williams try to do it 10 different ways, but Ben Affleck only wanted to do it 2 ways. And he let them do whatever they thought was right. And he was an independent filmmaker from Pacific Northwest who's made a ton of great movies over the years. This is probably the most mainstream thing he's ever done, but he's got a little bit of, realistic secret sauce that I think elevates it.
Any relation to Van Sant from Heat?
It's funny you should say that, because the other director up for this movie was Michael Mann. And he wanted to make the guys into car thieves. And when I found that out, this movie got 5% worse to me, because I was like, shit, I need Goodwill car thief.
I had this coming later, but let's talk about this now. So this is a what if for this movie. He shoots a whole day of footage with them for a screen test, and then goes with this whole thing about how he wants Mexican car thieves to be in it. And they're explaining to him that wouldn't really feel like Boston, and he's all fired up about it. But so the title of that would have been Goodwill Hunted.
Do you think he does that though for every movie he's up for? He's like Shakespeare in Love, but they're car thieves.
Yeah, right.
Titanic, but they're stealing the Titanic.
There's time. And they're running out of time.
Yeah, but if you think about the pitch of what it really is, it's a girlfriend in therapy. I can't believe I saw it.
Well, this movie won 2 Oscars. Robin Williams won for Best Supporting Actor, and the boys won for Screenplay. Damon, 4th person ever at this point to get nominated for acting and writing in the same year. Sean, can you name the other 3?
I can't accept that that's an erroneous fact. I saw this fact as well.
What is it?
Wow. Are you rattled?
No, there might be. I said to this point.
Well, I could, off the top of my head, Rocky did it.
Sly Stallone, Orson Welles, Charles Chaplin.
But also Woody Allen did it for Annie Hall, because he was nominated that year.
Hush fell over the crowd.
There was
Whoa.
You may
Hey,
recall.
listen,
And
we're all
then-
friends here.
And then I'm
fast
just
their
correcting
research.
the erroneous
This is like the
internet
math
fact.
scene.
Sean's like, you know how easy this is for me? It's a fucking joke.
Yeah. Don't put a whiteboard in front of me, man. I got markers. It happened again 1 year later with Life is Beautiful. Roberto Benigni did it.
That's a tough one.
And you know who
fond
produced
memories of that Oscar.
Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. Well, we have two big Oscar debates that come out of this.
Do we?
Yeah, we do. Buckle up, Russillo. That's coming up next. Jack Nicholson wins for As Good as It Gets. The other nominees were Matt Damon, Good Will Hunting, Robert Duvall in The Apostle, Peter Fonda in Uli's Gold. That was the other choice for tonight. And then Dustin Hoffman for Wag the Dog. And all these years later, I just think Damon should have won.
Agree.
And As Good as It Gets, which was really good when it came out, it was James L. Brooks, and it was a thing. Helen Hunt got nominated too. I just don't think it's aged well as a movie. And it makes me mad that Matt Damon didn't win. CR?
Damon's unbelievable in this movie. Do you ever think about like him writing his own speeches though? Like, do you ever like think that like should be some sort of demerit? Because like if Jack Nicholson could always just write his own scenes, like
Is this you justifying never having won an award?
No.
Do you write all your own material?
But I think Damon is like even scenes that I thought of as Robin Williams scenes. Like Damon is unbelievable in them in this. So he is very deserving.
I thought he was awesome. What do you think, Russillo?
Look.
Oh boy.
I don't think I've made it all the way through As Good as It Gets. So.
Yeah.
What about
probably shouldn't
Uli's
have
Gold though?
That might disqualify you.
Yeah,
from
I don't
having
even
an
think I should
opinion.
have a vote. This is like, hey, have you watched the NBA this year? Do you want a Defensive Player of the Year award? Like, sure. I mean, somebody the other night said that Miles Turner's in the running, and I'm like, what the fuck? But I guess Robin Williams is so good that I think it may have hurt Damon's case.
He got outshone.
I think it's
Yeah.
a good take.
He should have
agree.
won. Affleck did not get nominated. Robin Williams wins, and he beats all of the people on Boogie Nights. Burt Reynolds got nominated, but everybody else who could have gotten nominated. And then,
Do you agree with that?
well, he beats Robert Forster and Jackie Brown, which
my
Sean
God.
is like very partial to. I'm not as partial. Greg Kinnear in As Good as It Gets, and Anthony Hopkins in Amistad.
You voted for Anthony
have not
Hopkins.
watched
that
it.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
He
Burt
was
Reynolds
John
Boogie
Quincy
Nights,
Adams,
though,
I think, in that film.
honestly, just rough luck for Burt Reynolds.
That's
I think he
brutal.
wins in a lot of other years.
It's very similar to Stallone not winning for Creed, where that whole time everybody thought Burt was going to win, and then he lost because
Yeah.
everybody realized that nobody likes Burt Reynolds in Hollywood.
Right. That, by the way, that's
tough.
going to happen to Draymond Green with Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's favored right now. Oh, that got Russillo.
No, but I mean, it's like after the cat thing, he got destroyed.
Yeah.
And then the odds changed. I'm like, have you not paid attention to all these media members?
Yeah,
Basically
who are
saying,
disgusted.
like, everybody is on the same page about him
Yeah.
right now. So there's a little Sunday preview.
And then Good Will Hunting wins over Boogie Nights. What do we think all these years later for screenplay? It's a tough one. I don't know if I have an answer.
What's your answer if we're not doing it in Lansdowne Street?
Yeah, that's what I'm not trying to not respond.
Yeah.
I mean, Boogie Nights should have won
I'll
everything.
say it. I think Boogie Nights is a better movie.
Thank you, Ryan.
Who won? Who was
night,
Best
everybody.
Director this year?
James Cameron.
Yeah, I think Paul Thomas Anderson should have won.
Well, this got nominated for 9 Oscars. Elliott Smith nominated for Best Original Song for Miss Misery. He's all over this movie, and it's awesome. And Danny Elfman lost for Best Score to Titanic, because Titanic just obliterated everybody. $10 million budget, made $225 million. Roger Ebert. So every time we do Rewatchables, we read Roger Ebert's review. 3 stars. Maybe he had some like bad Mexican before the movie and just
did you read
wasn't
the
in a great
review?
frame of mind.
Did you read Ebert's review?
Yeah, he said the film has a good ear for the way these characters might really talk.
Might?
The outcome of this movie is fairly predictable. So is the whole story, really. It's the individual moments, not the payoff, that make it so effective. It's a borderline fuck you, Raj. I gotta be honest. I don't like his tone.
Also, in the body of the review, Ebert just gives away Chucky's monologue. He's just like, oh, and then Chucky says this. And I'm like, this is the best part of the film.
Right. Yeah. Well, all right, we're going to do some categories.
That's I'm still, I didn't know that.
Sorry. Yeah.
I know you guys like read these every week. So there's so many bad versions of this movie, and this one made it feel authentic, and it was a good ending. It was a happy ending.
Yeah.
And it didn't, all these movies you're like, oh, it's just going to be happy at the end. Cool. This one felt like you actually felt really happy at the end.
3.5 stars seems fair.
I think he gave it 3 stars.
No, but I'm saying
Yeah.
3.5 I think is about as low as you want to go.
His take was kind of the consensus take, though. And I think that a lot of the critics who were not in Boston were like, I don't know, is this authentic? I'm not sure. And it seems like everybody here
Do you think
feels
Ebert
like it was very
saw
authentic.
the Michael Mann screen test footage?
Could be.
Good Will
And
Hunted.
he was waiting for the cars to chase Damon.
We're doing the categories. I have a special category I didn't tell you guys. The single most Boston thing about this movie. Our nominees. The overhead of Fenway Park. Morgan's I Hate LA t-shirt. The old school red line trolleys that they kind of brought out of retirement because those were done. A big scene on the beach in Boston Common. The L Street Tavern. Bunker Hill Community College, which by the way looks literally exactly the same. Like exactly to a T. Eating at Kelly's and the Tasty. Very 90s. Very 90s. Sean has a really cool Red Sox jacket. I want to shout that out.
Yeah.
I thought Will's apartment looked very Boston. Dunkin' Donuts is just omnipresent, which I appreciated. But here's our winner. This is an Affleck story from the oral history. And I'm just going to quote him. One night we took Robin to the L Street Tavern. Robin wanted to get a taste of Boston. I remember thinking, this is a fucking mistake. And then it just turns into a mob scene. Guys got really drunk and wanted to fight me because I had my hat on backwards. That's the most Boston thing about this movie. I'm going with that.
So he's making the movie. He's from here.
Yeah.
And his hat's on backwards, and somebody's like, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same thing as people hearing about them writing this amazing screenplay.
Yeah.
It's like, so they're going to make a movie? What do they think, they're cool?
You think you're better than me?
I don't want to jump it, but this is Apex Mountain for Bunker Hill. I mean, it's been all downhill since. And no offense to any alums, but when your boy fucked up his first semester at UVM, and then I got a 3.5-hour speech on the ride back up after fall semester by my father, we drove by Bunker Hill on 93, and he was like, we could just stop here and drop you off. And so I've never thought of Bunker Hill in my life without that moment of like, it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
If this is the effort you're gonna put in, I don't have to drive 3.5 hours back. He's like, we can find you, a place in Somerville. It's gonna be cheaper, and we can just wrap this up. If that's, and I was like, all right, look, let's just get back to Vermont. I'll try harder. And so every time I would drive past Bunker Hill, I'm like, there's a Russillo path there. Could have gone different.
It's on my son's list for 2 years from now.
Can you get in state?
The 99's right there. I mean, it's... yeah, 99. $10 chicken parmesan in 1998. It was great. We're going to do the categories. Most rewatchable scene. The playground fight scene.
Got some notes.
Hey, come on, remember me? Really good slow motion battle. We get a little Baker Street from Jerry Rafferty.
What about the music choice for the fight scene?
Yes or no?
I'm still confused.
I think that was, he was zagging. It was
We
a
couldn't
zag.
throw a little Ed O.G. or Tim Dog in there when they're fighting. Like, I just didn't get that.
Yeah.
Not the berry, but the fruit y'all?
Yeah.
Next rewatchable
No one got
scene.
that Roxbury reference. Ofer.
The Harvard bar scene at the Bow and Arrow. Here's what I wrote in my notes. Ponytail guy comes in talking market economy in the southern colonies, and then in all caps, Russillo's dream encounter in 1997.
Yeah, I don't know what, I'd be like, you think Shea Hillenbrand has become more patient because he takes the first pitch now, which everyone in the league knows that he's going to do, which actually counteracts his patience because he's the most predictable at-bat in fucking Major League Baseball? If that would happen, it wouldn't be markets, it wouldn't be capitalism. Yeah.
How many times did you and Ponytail guys circle each other when you lived here?
I was a little bit. When I got here, how old was I? I was like 27, 28.
Okay.
So it was kind of out of me by then. The funny thing is, I actually got bigger when I needed it, and when I was more of a dickhead, I was smaller. So it didn't really match. It's actually probably better for everybody involved.
Yeah, it probably worked out. The seesaw tilted correctly. CR, this is a Hall of Fame friend scene. We're using all four guys perfectly.
Yeah, I think the thing I've always wondered was that guy named Clark, is the Scott Winters character. Is the ponytail a tribute to Revolutionary War era hairstyles? But yeah, I mean, it's just incredible backgetting by the friend group.
He was a huge Amistad fan.
Yeah, that's right. And Stellan Skarsgård in Amistad. If he had just been nicer, he might have met his hero.
Some good shout-outs to Thomas Zinn.
Howard
Zinn.
Zinn.
No, and Thomas. Who is the Thomas? Howard Zinn.
Gordon Wood.
Gordon Wood. Wasn't there a Thomas too?
I don't know, man.
I have a big doc here.
Thinking of Noam Chomsky's Manufacturing Consent?
I'll tell you what, though. Imagine
that
if you were really in that field, and you're like watching that movie, and you go, Damon actually I'm not a free thinker. I'm 43.
Right.
Like, that's I believed all, like, that scene fucked up at least one person in a way that we'll never understand. And it also makes me like, did Damon just hate that course so much?
Yeah. Yeah, it was building inside him for 10 years.
Yeah, because that's not just normal dialogue.
Yeah. My boy's wicked smart. There's some really good quotes in here, and then it leads to the "Do you like apples" scene, which we could tackle now or later.
Up to you, man.
Why is the answer yes?
There's no good outcome by saying yes. If Clark just goes, I'm not, and turns back around to the three girls at Dunkin' Donuts, the night's over. But he gets to throw the Skylar's number up.
Can we just dissect it a little bit more, though?
Yeah.
I'm glad you're doing this.
Let's go back to the bar. Clark's in the bar. He's there with his dorky friends. They're standing behind him when he's starting to go at Affleck. First of all, Affleck's got like 8 inches on him. He's a giant. And he's a townie who will break his fucking head open.
Yeah.
And Clark is not hitting on the girls. He knows them.
He's just being a dick.
But they're not interested.
Yeah.
And so he's challenging a townie, which let's just say I'm Clark for the sake of conversation because I'm a skinny dork. I would never say shit to a guy like that.
You're right.
So then Damon's idea to counter that is rather than break his head open, he's just going to explode his brain, right? So he embarrasses him. But then Clark's like, all right, see you later, man. He doesn't try to hit on Minnie Driver or anything. So where does do you like apples even come from? Like, what does he even...
Yeah, what was the win?
He already won.
Right.
So
it was like a double win. He came back for more. See, I had this for nitpicks for later, but... in real life, they beat the hell out of this guy at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I mean, they just do.
But I like that Clark walks it up to the edge twice, where they're just like, do you want to go outside? And he's just like, no, I just want to be pedantic about Gordon Wood.
But does that work in bar
I don't know,
fight
I've never
scenarios?
fucking tried it.
To be like, it's cool, man, it's cool, don't break my head open. Ryan, you tell us. When you're ready to break a guy's head open.
There's a couple things. I've never quite understood what it meant. Uh-oh.
I don't have a counter.
This is the most iconic scene in this movie.
I know,
and every time I watch
says
it, I love it. And then I start to think about it, and I'm like, what really happened here?
Whatever. I mean, there had to be some, I guess, final moment, and so they came up with. I've never heard anyone ever say that until the movie came out, and then it obviously a bunch of dudes said it for a really long time, but. Your thing on why would you even go at these guys, I would disagree with that because I think when the whole point of them being in Cambridge, and I remember even, back when I was in school, like this ROTC crew would come out when they had leave. It was the worst. So we're all like 185 pounds with our game hats on, but we were all just clones of each other, so no one was really afraid of anybody else. And then these ROTC guys would come up and like hit on these girls from Greenwich, Connecticut, and they were like horrified. You're like, what are you on student aid or something? Like, get the fuck away from me. I'm from Riverside. Like, this is what the fuck? I'm from Newton or something. And they were just like, why are these commoners talking to us? And then they'd grab one of us morons and be like, hey, dude, and then it would be like, what have you ever done for your country? And we'd always get our ass kicked. But the point is that you would feel protective of your neighborhood. And I think in this case, Clark is just like, even if you guys would kill us, you're not supposed to be here. And look, Minnie's at Harvard. I don't know what it was like in '97 because I wasn't here, so maybe, but you know, they're not just going to give her away to out-of-staters.
I really think we should test this theory tonight. Me and you go to a Harvard bar and start talking to some girls.
Yeah, but they redid the can tab. I've had like 2 birthday parties there, and I recently stopped in again, and it's like nice now. So I was like, fuck. I think I played quarters there one night with a case, and then they were like, "Where do you work here?"
Next scene. Possible rewatchable candidate. Will's first meeting with Sean when he breaks down the painting, and it's really awkward, and then he says, maybe you married the wrong woman. Watch it there, Chief.
I will end you.
I will fucking end you. Trivia for this. Gus Van Sant painted the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was Pesci's mom in Goodfellas.
Possible great shot Gordo in here, CR, for this?
For the
way
light
they
on
filmed Damon with the
his
light?
face. Yeah.
Okay.
Also love Damon saying, "Let the healing begin."
Yeah. Will's second meeting is the next one because we get that incredible Robin Williams monologue we mentioned. We get Boston Common. Great to see it.
Build a statue!
Well, there's a big thing about building a Robin Williams statue near that bench. This is another great Boston fact. When they filmed this scene in the Common, there were 3,000 people, like just far enough away so they weren't on camera watching. And this was the heyday, and I was living here when this happened, of when they were filming stuff here, it was like the cool, like they filmed Blown Away with Tommy Lee Jones.
Great accents in that, yeah.
And everybody was out of their minds that they were filming it here. And then the Real World house was in the fire station in Beacon Hill, and that was like, oh my God. The Real World, but everybody, those kids were in trouble.
You were still here?
No, I was still here, but the kids were in trouble. Because they would go out and people would be like, Real World, huh?
Yeah, that's 100% true. When they were here, everybody
everyone fucked with them.
Right.
Yeah, it completely fucked up the
Did
show.
You notice they've never done it here again?
Never.
Did you apply for Real World Boston?
I didn't. I kind of wish I had.
Is there any existing audition tape of you trying to get on a reality show?
No.
Okay.
Thank God.
One of
But then
my
they filmed this.
two roommates of mine did it, and they didn't hit stop on the camcorder. So one guy sat down, did his thing, and then got up, and then the next guy. And so to this day, he's like, I don't think they waited to see mine.
Yeah, that was the problem.
And you're like, you think that's why you didn't get picked? Because of patience?
This monologue's great, and I'm not going to read it to the crowd, but I think this is some of Williams' best work ever.
Yeah.
It's really great, and I hope they give him the statue. Next one, the Game 6 story. We get Carlton Fisk footage, which, I don't know, does the Fisk homer still matter to the younger people out there? All right. That's great, because it was one of the most important things of the 70s for if you were a kid growing up here. But he doesn't go to the game, and he tells the story about how he had to go see about a girl, and it still bugs me that he didn't go to the game, Russillo.
To be fair, I think it would bug you.
It's my biggest nitpick.
If he was skipping like a Hornets Blazers game, you'd be like,
Yeah.
what?
No, this is a tough one, though. They're down 3-2 in the World Series. They'd only been in 67 and in 46. Everybody loved this 75 Red Sox team, including me. And it was the Lyndon Rice team, and Yaz was still there. And he's just like, yeah, take my ticket. I'm not going to go. I really feel like his friends would have, like, fucking fought him. Right?
Or they would have just given it to somebody who wanted it really bad.
I don't know if I come back from it.
He's a fictional character, Bill.
It's a good point. I always forget that.
And this story serves as the emotional metaphor for the entire movie.
I kind of agree with Bill. I don't think that guy doesn't go to Game 6.
I'm trying to think, like, how
just
great
get her
would the
number.
girl have been? Yeah, she would understand, too, if it was the right
She's
girl.
from here?
That's a good take.
Actually, should she marry him if he didn't go?
It's like he would sell out the thing he loves the most right away. Yeah, I wouldn't trust him. This is a short one, but next one is do you know how easy this is for me? Do you have any idea? It's a fucking joke. I just love when he lays in a Lambo, that loser. And then I gotta say, the last like 30 minutes of this movie is out of control, Sierra.
Yeah.
Like from a rewatchability standpoint, we get Skylar leaves to LA, looking back, seeing if he's nope, he's not in the airport. We go right to the construction site. Affleck gets his big moment. Then we go to Lambo versus Sean. Then we go to it's not your fault, it's not your fault. Then we go to the last scene, and then all of a sudden, see about a girl, and we're good. And it's just like every scene is a home run.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those runtime movies where you're like, wait a second, they haven't done like X, Y, and Z, and they're just hit after hit after hit at the end of the album.
Kid Cudi, Pursuit of Happiness Award.
Wait, we didn't pick the rewatchable scene.
No, I'm putting it in here. I think because that Elliott Smith's Angeles, I think when she's waiting to see if he's going to show up at the airport or not, I think that's the winner. The Affleck monologue. You've been known to write some screenplay stuff from time to time, Russillo. In 20 years, if you're still living here, coming over to my house, watching the Patriots, working construction, I'll fucking kill you.
If you're still making that joke in 20 years. You know what I think it did? It's funny because like when you start to really see the stuff that works, like it can be really, really predictable, you know? And then if it becomes like too predictable, it kind of loses it. And the funniest thing about this movie for me and why I appreciate it so much is that it's actually very predictable, but it never feels forced. It's not that you have to be surprised here. It's just the flow of the storytelling. And so for something as innocuous as Affleck to be like, I just hope, you know, the best part of my day is that moment where I'm hoping you're not there.
Yeah.
So then you kind of know like that moment's going to happen. That closes it. To see about a girl. There's like 3 different things that close it. The car, because they have to give him a car because he didn't have one to drive cross country. There's just these things that you guys were talking about, just the heat zone that you're in at the end of this movie. I don't know that it's not that there's some twist. It's not that there's something that shocks you. It doesn't have any of those things. And there's so many movies that fuck this up.
Yeah.
And they're just perfect with it towards the end.
Yeah, there's some bad versions of this where he shows up at the airport, or there's some version of it where...
Or he shows up right after the plane leaves.
Yeah.
He's running toward the gate and doesn't... She's
That's
not
like the
there.
1995 indie movie version where it's like, oh shit, the plane left.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like the getting into like what his trauma was, also giving the therapist as much time and space to like have his own story usually doesn't happen. It's just such a great character study.
Yeah, Ryan was alluding to it. I mean, nothing really happens in this movie. You know, he meets a girl, they go on a few dates, and he goes to therapy.
He kicks
And then he gets
Carmine's
in the car
ass.
and
Don't
goes to
forget
drop.
about
Yeah.
Carmine takes a beating.
No, but Sean, you're right. There's not really this, like when we were thinking about the rewatchable scenes when I was even prepping for this pod, I was like, there's a couple good lines, but there's no, like, do you want to be emotionally drained and watch It's Not Your Fault a couple times a week? Like, of course not, you know?
Wasn't his fault.
It's a really heavy drama, and you mentioned the part about how Castle Rock bought the script at the start of it, and that they were renowned for their ability to develop material, and that everybody wanted to work with them.
Yeah.
And they give that big note to be like, this is a thriller and an ordinary people style drama. And they were like, do the drama, which is like the least commercial aspect of the story, and yet their instincts are totally right. And the movie is like weirdly propulsive, even though there's no chasing her down at the airport scene. There's no scene where like, you know, Chucky and Will like have a falling out and then they have to get back together. Like it doesn't have any of that conventional stuff. So it's kind of miraculous in that way.
Yeah, in the research, they said Van Zandt wanted them to write an extra scene where Chucky gets killed in a construction accident. Like, for real.
Jesus.
And they actually wrote the scene, and they're like, this does not work. America does not want Chucky to get hit by a crane.
But you know what I mean? Like, you're right. In a 2-hour movie, you're like, okay, there's something bad, and then it has to get even worse.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, because they made it, they're going to figure out how to make it better. I mean, really, for this, if you're going by that simple formula, which is basically almost every form of storytelling, what's the thing? Like, it's the breakthrough, you know, the breakthrough. But normally that wouldn't be allowed to even have it happen that late. Mm-hmm. Like, I bet you if you try to make it now, the note would be have the breakthrough at like an hour.
It's like when we do the movie about how we never stop believing in Scoot Henderson. that one game that night when we were texting each other. That was the breakthrough. The same thing.
Is that better as a Netflix series?
Yeah, eight episodes. One thing with the Affleck scene, I thought this was great in the research. They worked on this movie for 5 years, and this was his big moment, right? Damon has the better part in the movie. They're together, and he's the sidekick, but the construction scene's his big scene, and he's building up, and then finally the day's the day, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna do my scene. He does the take, and he nails it, and they were like, that was great. You want to do it again? And he didn't know what to do. It was like he had just hit like a game-winning homer, and they were like, all right, so you want to do this the other side now we'll shoot it behind Damon, and he was just like, I just felt like I climbed Mount Everest basically. But it's cool when you watch that, because that's the scene that kind of sets up the next 30 years for him, I think.
It's also fun to imagine Gus Van Sant being like, can we have some rebar fall and hit Chucky right here?
Right as he finishes it.
No, but it's a great point because he doesn't get to show off until that moment.
Well, that's why when I did
it's just pretty crazy if you wrote the screenplay. It's like you didn't hook yourself up a little bit earlier.
Well, that's why those guys, Damon's so protective of Affleck, but when I did a pod with them a couple years ago, and he was so mad about how Affleck was treated after the movie, even now, when he was like, SNL did a sketch, and they made Damon seem like the star, and Affleck was like his loser Boston sidekick, and he was like, Affleck sacrificed, like, I had the much better part in that movie, and Affleck didn't really have one. A couple other parts near the end here. The farewell therapy scene right into when Will gets his car. Cole Hauser's best moment.
Yes.
It's a good car.
Good car.
The engine's good. You can see the seeds of someday this guy's going to lead a Taylor Sheridan show right here. It's a good car. And then the ending, Affleck goes to see him. He's not there anymore. And we get the first of many Ben Affleck faces when he does the... And he does the whole sequence. We see it many times over the future. Then Morgan jumps in the front seat, and then tell him, I'm sorry, I went to go see about a girl. And then Robin Williams ad-libs, son of a bitch, he stole my line.
Can I ask you a question? Is that the next day after he tells him, I'll fucking kill you? Because it takes him a long time to realize what's happened.
It wasn't going to take a long time to pack, I don't think.
Good point. Not a lot of stuff. But like Affleck is really laying it on thick there at the end. You know,
Do you think he propelled him to drive cross country? It's possible.
Seems like it, right?
What do you have for most rewatchable scenes, CR?
I think it's probably the first therapy scene, actually. I really love that one. And I love like the analysis of the art. It's just such a great setup for those two characters.
Sean?
I have two that you did not list that are my favorites. The first one is Retainer.
Yeah.
When Affleck goes in to do the job interview at McNeil, which is so funny, which might be the funniest full scene in the movie. And then the second one is the two jokes. Is Affleck telling the joke about Uncle Marty and stealing the cruiser, followed by Minnie Driver delivering a great joke about an old Irish couple. I just think those are two great scenes that feel like things that actually happened that they put into the movie.
What do you got, Russillo? Most rewatchable?
By the way, the State Trooper story, I heard that in college from a guy from like Hingham and then thought it was real. So is that like the Life serial kid died eating Pop Rocks thing? Where like every single one of us has heard that story, and then when it happened in the movie, I'm like, holy shit, that happened to him too? And then I went, oh, maybe no one's ever had that story. But it was just an urban legend thing. Rewatchable, we haven't given Minnie enough love here, okay?
It's coming. We can do it now, though.
The first kiss scene is like one of the most natural, cool, non-forced, these people from completely different walks of life, and having that moment where you're immediately comfortable with somebody in a way that just seems impossible when you barely know them. That is the most brilliant part of I mean, the Robin Williams stuff is tough to compete with, but she's so believable, and the relationship is so believable. I mean, other than he's just like, I know how to do everything when they have coffee that day. I don't know. It hit me today. I was like, man, all of these scenes with her are just fantastic, and it's not like I wanted the whole movie to be about her, but I just thought that luncheon burger kiss was really cool.
Yeah, let's get the kiss out of the way.
They were trying to make it like the opposite of this dramatic moment, which it would normally be in every other movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put this as most rewatchable, but she's so awesome in the breakup scene. Like, it really feels like he's actually breaking up with her. Like, she's immediately devastated and just crushed by it. I have the construction scene as my most rewatchable. What's the most 1997 thing about this movie? I was gonna say just young Damon and Affleck with their whole careers in front of them. It's like as we get older, it's kind of amazing this thing exists. What do you have, CR?
I have the fact that there's no internet, so Will Hunting doesn't spend all his time on Red Sox Reddit shit-talking Mo Vaughn. This guy can't fucking hit with guys on runners on base.
We were saying that.
Payphones and the convenience that payphones afforded you when you could say, I forgot somebody's number, and go back into the car like a coward.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's just great. If it was now, Skylar would just bang that number into his phone.
That's true. There's multiple payphone scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
Good point. What do you got, Russillo?
It's a pretty diverse film. I don't know in 2025.
What do you mean there's Irish and Italian guys in this movie?
Yeah. Carmine.
I don't know. Michael Mann might have been on something.
Yeah. What's age the best? I have a bunch of them. I'll turn it over to you guys, but I want to start here. Giving someone a Dunkin' Donuts coffee after you pick them up from jail is a what's age the best for me. What do you have, CR?
I got a couple. I got Will explaining how jokes work to a character played by Robin Williams. And Will's art criticism. I think you're one step away from cutting your fucking ear off. You kind of like lost that sharp elbowed style critique of popular culture. I've got to bring that back. And just like the formation of the group, the smart one, quiet one, loud one, dumb one, like
Yeah.
perfect. The Beatles right there.
Sean?
Yeah, definitely Matt and Ben Industries. You know, the idea of them being this iconic duo now for 30 years running, which is amazing that it lasted this long and usually doesn't work out that way. And then I think this is the conversion of Robin Williams' legacy from comedy person to iconic actor. And if he doesn't have this movie, even though he did plenty of dramatic parts, he's really thought of more as a performer and not Mork, you know? Even if he had done Dead Poets and he had done What Dreams May Come or whatever.
Yeah, because he was struggling a little bit from an IMDb standpoint. He made that movie Jack.
Yeah.
He made that movie What Dreams May Come with Cuba Gooding that you just mentioned that he was a little bit of a slump.
Although, if not for Jack, he might not have done this movie.
True.
Because he asked Francis Ford Coppola, who the fuck are these guys? Because he had just made Jack with Francis Ford Coppola. And Francis Ford Coppola cast Damon as the Rainmaker. So that was a critical, even though Jack sucks. Sorry, Jack.
Sorry, Jack.
Look, that's the right answer because I was watching the Oscar acceptance speech this morning.
It's great. That's a good what's age the best.
I mean, it looks like a bit. Like, security's supposed to come over and be like, who are you guys?
Yeah.
I remember Dennis Miller, when he had his HBO show, he played the clip and he goes, what we didn't hear when they went to commercial was, we're going to get so laid. You know?
Right.
This sheer euphoria, which also in that clip, you can see Minnie Driver miserable because Damon dumped her in real life.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I'm about to win a fucking Oscar. Like, like, you know, I'm not staying. Like, I got to see what's in the mix. But Boston accents, I think, age the best because I had guys, as we know, it skips generations. It skips geographical areas. Like, you can be separated by 5 miles, and you're like, I know what you're saying, and you're never going to pronounce the word drawer in your entire life. And so we had guys come back that summer. Like, I had a buddy, and we were out at a bar, and the girls were like, where are you guys from? He's like, oh, I'm from Ubin. I'm like, who the fuck are you?
Right.
Because he never had it. He never had it. I go, what? I go, what are you doing? He's like, dude, you know, when I'm coming home, you know, like, I just pick it up. I'm like, yeah, except you've never had it the whole time I've known you. Like, this is our 5th year of knowing each other, and you've never picked it up. Like, come on, like, what are you doing? And Good Will Hunting is responsible for that. And Good Will Hunting, Boston guys became like a novelty in LA. Like they were like, hey, we've got this really dumb kid from Framingham who's gonna talk like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in real life. So let's
hire him as a PA.
Yeah, right. Like, do you guys want to watch him talk and get some drinks? So, I mean, the accent's kind of still. This movie changed it, man.
Yeah. Now Rhode Island is the state that happens to. This PA's from Rhode Island. You got to hear him. I have a couple more. The friendship aspect, which we mentioned. The clothes, the cardigans for Sean, but really Chucky's outfits.
His tracksuits.
These tracksuits, and they're both. It's cheap and fancy at the same time, but it's perfect.
There's a great bit in the oral history about like the costume designer wanted to dress them almost like in like homeless rags, and like they had to like call somebody from Reebok to rush tracksuits to Chucky. Like,
right. The top 4 guys in this movie, so it ends up Casey wins an Oscar, and then Cole Hauser is the star of the biggest audience-wise TV show we've had the last 10 years, and then Damon and Affleck, but you rarely go 4 for 4. It's like when you have a family that has 4 siblings or more, probably not going 4 for 4 with the siblings.
I'm one of 4.
Maybe go 3.5 for 4. You have 4?
I'm
you
one
go
of
4
4.
for 4?
I mean, yes. So imagine if I was like, there's one rotten one, you know. Sorry, Kyle.
I always used to make fun of House because he had 2 brothers, and it was like, which one's the black sheep? I still can't figure it out. Affleck has a late 90s director's DVD commentary before the era that we knew social media and the internet was really coming the way it did, and he's just on one the entire time.
He's the best director's
He's the
commentary guy.
He's no one's best. I mean, the Armageddon one.
Yeah.
I'll randomly remind myself to watch those clips.
He's unbelievable in these. The therapist scenes are just really good. Wanted to shout those out. George Plimpton, I don't care if you putt from the rough. I don't know where they came up with that. Phenomenal. And then
that whole scene is insanely funny. Damon doing the club stuff is
just
elite.
fucking with George Plimpton. By the way, George Plimpton. And then my last one is the girl in the bar at the beginning who starts making fun of Chucky's dick and calls it Irish curse and a Tootsie Roll. Just on brand.
Toot, toot. Yeah. There's 2 that are lost here.
Okay.
Because you could argue this movie's really about math culture.
Yeah.
Which I don't see brought up a lot.
Yeah, not.
But when the professor is at the reunion and the undergrad is like, hey, and he's like, it's Saturday, unless you want to have a drink tonight. You're like, what the fuck?
So I had that in What's Age the
Me
Worst,
too.
but I'm happy to flip it.
Okay.
Yeah. Jerry's
Do you want him
boundaries.
going best?
Definitely.
That's great.
Because then
Russillo's like, college professors
the
hitting on
second
their
one
students.
is better. The second one is better because right when is it the post Plimpton session? Yeah, right. So Plimpton yells ballyhoo. Plimpton kills it. I mean, it's
he
probably,
kills it.
you know, we'll see how the award shake out, but we just come into the scene and he's turned to some other undergrad. He's like, math is erotic. And like you kind of wonder, like, is there going to be, I don't know that you would be allowed to just throw that in there without somebody giving you the note of like, where the hell does that go?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Sean Penn I Brought My Own Pack Award for Excellence in On-Screen Smoking. Damon, 10 out of 10.
Oh my God, but Bill, we have a moment here. Cole Hauser's last cigarette in this movie is the smoking equivalent of Daniel Day-Lewis building an oil derrick in the beginning of There Will Be Blood. He comes into the bar when they give him the car, last puff, smokes it down to the butt, grinds it out, and then goes like this to be like, I got the car for him, and gets beers with one gesture.
Yeah.
It's just like a fucking triple axle lands it. And then the next thing you know, he's outside, he's just like, it's a good engine.
Yeah. Hauser.
King.
CR, what'd you end up with for Great Shot Gordo?
I love that when Chucky's monologue starts, they stay on Damon. And so the first half of Chucky's monologue is like Damon with the construction, the bulldozer behind him, and it's like, this is this guy's future if he doesn't listen to his friend right now. But it takes a lot like you guys were talking about with Affleck's humility in this movie. It's like, that's his Oscar reel. That's his highlight tape. That's the one.
Yeah.
And he's like, spend half of it on my best friend. That's incredible.
Can I give you one other great shot, Gordo?
Yeah.
There's like a 1 second overhead shot when Robin Williams is pushing Damon out of the way when he's telling the Carlton Fisk story, and he's matching it with the overhead of Fenway
yeah.
during this.
Good
it's
call.
like very tiny little move, but you love just watching Williams push him out of the way.
Good call. Den of Thieves Benihana Award for scene stealing location. It's got to be the Boston Common, right?
I always loved Oban Pen, personally.
The Aubon Panda Outdoors? Yeah.
Great turkey sandwich.
Sean, the racetrack, the dog track. The Chess Rockwell and Brock Landers Award for best character name.
Chucky Sullivan.
Chucky wins.
Professor Gerald Lambeau is pretty fucking good.
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty good. They
His
definitely
full
spitballed
character
that for a
name
couple
is
hours.
Morgan O'Malley. Are you sure we're not
He's good. That's
overlooking
good
this?
too.
I just wondered, like, if they would go, we can't do Sullivan. And then maybe they argued about it forever, and they were like, let's just make it Sullivan. 'Cause they felt like they had to pick a more obscure one.
Right. Well, Lambeau, that leads to the Vincent Chase Award, named after Vincent Chase from Entourage. Are we sure this character was actually good at his job?
He's a professor at MIT. He probably knows what, I mean, just because he couldn't hold up to Damon,
Counter.
dude.
Are we sure he deserved the Fields Medal?
Do you know what drives me
Guy's
crazy?
getting blown out of the water by the janitor.
We were
Come on.
we were talking about this backstage. Is math podcasts are starting Fields Medal conversations way too early. You know, it's every 4 seasons.
30 games into the season.
But if you don't have one,
Can I zag on this?
Yeah.
Are we sure Dr. Sean McGuire is a good therapist?
Oh. Okay. You're going to lose the crowd again. Let's go.
Let's just start here. Commits physical violence during a therapy session.
Right, that's true.
Not good.
Yeah.
Has no considerable scientific psychological point of view whatsoever. Neither Jungian nor Freudian. We have no idea where his whole bit is just like, so what do you like?
He's just borrowing.
You want to fall in
remixing.
love? That's not a
trying to grab
therapy
information.
strategy. I have more. He's clearly a shitty college professor. Nobody in that class is paying attention.
Right.
it is Bunker Hill.
Yeah.
That's fair. Here's one thing I'm confused about with that character. Was he a math guy?
Yeah, I never got this.
Pivoted to
Yeah, what did he teach?
To therapy?
Yeah. What did he teach at Bunker Hill?
He was teaching therapy. He was teaching psychology.
Yeah.
But he was
All right.
best friends with Gerald Lambeau, and they
Sean,
were
it's a
competing
great
for a
case.
Fields Medal? Okay.
You made me reconsider him.
I got to tell you, if he had a math background, he didn't want to talk about it with Damon a lot.
Right.
It's like he's sitting there with one of, like, apparently the 3 best mathematicians on the planet. And he was like, my wife farts a lot.
Butch's Girlfriend Award, weak link of the film. I already talked about giving up the Game 6 ticket and my issues. What do you have, CR?
I got this. It's Tom, the graduate assistant. Just fucking. He gives absolutely nothing in this movie. Like
Nothing.
No emotion. Like, there's a really good plot line here where he could get really jealous of Will, and he's just like a complete Hannibal Lecter the entire time. I know he's an actual mathematician and was like there for verisimilitude, but Jesus Christ, he's just like so straight-faced the entire time.
Pretty good one. What do you got, Ryan?
So you're talking about the actual character or a question?
Weak link, whatever you want it to be.
That car doesn't make it past Springfield.
I got this later.
I had that later, too.
Yeah.
What was Will's plan here?
Now, Chucky's picking him up later that night. They get into a fight in Springfield. They get their asses
He's in
handed
the
to
breakdown
them.
lane. Yeah. He's right before Sturbridge.
Right. Then The Hour's another movie where they go back with a bigger crew.
It's like right after the I-90 exit, but before Sturbridge.
This was actually my Z Want Neo award for what happens the next day is that the car breaks down somewhere in the Midwest. Will goes to a bar while the transmission's getting fixed, gets in a fight, gets regarding Henry, becomes dumb, forgets everybody else in his life, and is destined to work as a janitor in a community college.
It's amazing. Regarding Will Hunting.
And he doesn't have Skylar's number, so nobody knows, you know?
Oh, that's great. It's a great point about the car because, they patched some parts together so it could get him from Southgate to Cambridge.
Another part. Why are those three guys chipping in to buy a car for the only guy that's about to make $80,000 a year?
It's a great point.
Like, those guys would be like, fuck him. Like, I'm not.
I think Cole Hauser was like, wait a second, he's driving that car cross country? I put a lawnmower engine in
right.
it.
They thought he was just going to Cambridge.
Yeah. What do you have a weak link, Sean?
I think it would have been more fun if Marky, Ricky, Danny, Terry, Mikey, Davey, Timmy, Tommy, Joey, Robbie, Johnny, and Brian actually existed.
Oh, we had a scene with them. All right. What's age the worst? Harvey Weinstein being the hero of the movie? Tough one. Awkward. See, you could feel this, even the little silence right there.
There's
like,
one
"Oh."
other one that is related, which is that Mel Gibson was going to direct this movie until he ultimately agreed not to. So the two heroes of this movie getting made are Mel Gibson and Harvey Weinstein.
We lost the crowd. They're done.
I'm sorry. These are facts.
Yeah.
I feel like Mel's had a slightly better re-entry.
Yeah, absolutely. You and Chris should debate that.
Damon's hair with the frosted tips, a 1997 made sense, or it just looks horrible now?
You'd have to tell us, man. I didn't see a lot of that in Boston.
Don't
In
remember
Sync?
that look.
Right? In
Yeah,
Sync?
I don't remember that look that much.
Backstreet Boys?
Yeah.
I mean, it's-
but that feels early for Backstreet Boys, though.
Yeah.
Do you
It's
think
not.
that the guys from Southie were really modeling their hair off
I don't
Backstreet
know.
Boys at the time?
Damon said, even in the oral history, he said, maybe I would have done that one differently, the hair.
Herb
what else
Street
do you
had
have
frosted tips.
What else do you
Beginning
have
of
for the
College
What's
Game
Age
Day.
the Worst, CR?
Jerry Lambeau not having heard of Ted Kaczynski in 1996 after he had been arrested and was like one of the most famous criminals in the country.
Yeah, that's tough.
Will attacking the drywall over Skylar's head, probably want to dial that down.
Yeah.
And the last one was, pre-Jason Bourne fighting from Matt Damon.
Oh, I like what you did there.
I think he took it up a notch, but like the slow-mo is not
A little badass over here.
What do you got for What's Age the Worst?
Probably math is erotic again.
Yeah.
Also, probably the 10 plus years of any conversation with my buddies, if there was a dramatic pause, and then they would look at you, and they would go,
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
Yeah.
That got old after a little while.
Yeah, that's a What's Age the Best and the Age the Worst for this movie. The It's Not Your Fault joke was one of the better pull it out of a movie, absurd in real life jokes.
I didn't even bring that up when I was destroying Dr. Sean McGuire's resume, but I mean, that's your final boss move? It's not your fault? Like, your mom
All right,
can tell you that when
all
you're
right.
9 years old. What are we doing?
What would you have done?
It worked. It's a movie, dork.
Name calling.
It's Sean versus Sean violence. Going to Kelly's for takeout just because Kelly's doesn't exist anymore. We got a Gerald Lambeau hitting on college students in multiple scenes, and then calls Minnie Driver's character, and she's like, "Is this Professor Lambeau?" Hangs up on him.
Yeah.
So they made him super creepy as a way to we got to give him some color and some depth. Let's make him a really horny.
I'm
early
glad,
50s guy.
I'm glad there wasn't any reveal on where that was going, but
Yeah.
it is funny that they just kept
gave him
throwing
some
it
color.
in. So she answers and says, "Is this Lambo again?"
Yeah.
And then hangs up and says, "Freak."
Yeah.
Although the day scarf all the time
Yeah.
checks out.
CR, smoking indoors at bars. I don't know if it's a What's Age the Worst. It's a
It's
made
what's
me
aged the
nostalgic.
most fondly for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a better title for this movie?
I don't think so. Good Will Hunted is really creeping into my brain though.
Wicked Smart?
Wicked Smart.
It's a double entendre.
Well, I was thinking the janitor. If we go like the accountant.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
The
yeah.
janitor.
Just starring Jason Statham.
Yeah. The janitor.
Has to be a little slower.
All right. The CR thinks Luke Wilson could have been Harrison Ford. Hottest Take Award. Named after the time CR thought Luke Wilson could have been Harrison Ford.
We still have a lot of years left to go to see whether this thing pans out.
You're not done yet.
You know? I have, Will is actually the guy who he is making fun of at the Harvard bar. Because when he goes into Robin Williams' office and starts kicking all the Howard Zinn shit to him, he is talking to a guy who actually went to Vietnam and has had all the experiences, but he's just regurgitating what he read in Chomsky, which is exactly what Clark is doing in that bar. So Will, no better than Clark.
Interesting. Landed the plane on that. What do you got, Sean?
Is it possible that the Midnight Run-esque NSA thriller that they wanted this movie to be could have actually been better than the real Good Will Hunting that we got?
I thought about
like,
that.
It's not
I
impossible.
still want to see it. Yeah, I would have wanted to see the movie.
Damon did star in The Bourne Identity, and it was awesome. Like, he could do it. No?
No, they described it as like Midnight Run crossed with like a spy movie, and it's like, that sounds awesome. I would have seen that in the theater. What do you got, Russillo?
There's no way it works when he gets to LA, because he's not going to fit in LA. He's going to hate everybody. His smart powers, nobody's going to give a shit about. He doesn't even use them for good.
How do you know all this?
I can't really follow that up now. 97? That guy?
Mine's not even that hot, but I just think this is the best Boston accent ever by Damon in a movie. Like, by a star. Wahlberg's
Polite
got close.
clap.
Is there anybody else where you're just like, wow? I just think everything Damon does, he has the right level of
Blake Lively, I do
anger to
appreciate
it.
somebody yelling at. I think Alec Baldwin, The Departed at the driving range is... I mean, it's not the volume, but the wind shares per 48 are...
World needs plenty of bartenders.
Right.
On
Lets you
that
know
Mel
your dick
Gibson
still
thing,
works.
so casting What Ifs, we did most of them, but so Gibson develops it for a few months, and he's also working on some other stuff. And then Matt goes to him and says, look, man, we're getting too old. If this keeps going, we can't play these parts. Is there any chance you'd let it go and give it back to us? And Gibson said, yeah, I'll do that. And then he probably drove to Moon Shadows and said something offensive to a cop on the way home. But that was a great moment for him. And then Kevin Smith declined, and then Ben Stiller also declined. The Ben Stiller Good Will Hunting movie.
Kevin Smith was basically like, I'm not good enough to make this, right? Yeah.
Best
Really?
that guy.
Yeah, he was like, I'm not a visually
Yeah,
like,
Kevin
gifted
Smith's
enough
like,
director.
I would ruin your movie. Don't,
Yeah, he
don't
said, I
have me do
wouldn't
it."
dare direct this
Yeah.
movie.
Honestly, I mean, is he wrong?
Yeah, it is.
But then he got him in Dogma, which is very similar.
It's true.
Best that guy award, it has to be the ponytail guy, Scott Winters,
that's
who
who I
ends
had.
up in Oz as the Geico guy's brother.
Yeah.
It's his real
Ryan
brother.
O'Reilly's
Yeah.
brother.
Ryan and Cyril.
Yeah.
Yeah, killer
Dean
duo.
Winter- yeah.
Just an all-time that
Two
guy.
of the great Irishmen of all time.
Deion Waiters Award, I'll give you the following possibilities. Carmine, Hervé, you might remember him from Juvie.
It's Harmony Korine. Yeah.
The Boston girl who made fun of Chucky's Tootsie Roll. George Plimpton, or the one I think is the winner. I think Cole Hauser is eligible because he doesn't have a lot of lines. I think Cole Hauser wins.
wow.
Can I nominate one more person?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Jimmy Flynn,
Yes.
the judge.
You
hit a cough. You're going to jail. He's just doing JFK also as a judge.
What do you got, Russillo?
You know the Jimmy Flynn stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was like a real dude.
I'm fine
He's a
with
real-
Jimmy Flynn.
real deal,
We're doing
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Cole knew he was dealing with 3 local guys, and he deserves it because he didn't try to keep up with him. Like he just knew, and he's like, and then I'll make the most out of these things. And then he was named sexiest man alive 25 years later. When
Is that
he was,
true?
Yeah, when because I interviewed him and I was like, do you regret getting married so soon?
Just could have hung on for 2 decades there.
Yeah, if you just rode this out until you were Rip, who knows? But he didn't want to answer that. Did you look at Rip? Did you give the second Fast and Furious a chance? Because you were like, all right, cool.
Who are you talking to? Of course, I saw it in the theater.
Right, but was there an extra moment of like, oh, awesome.
I never gave up on Cole Hauser. I just never did. I always liked him. Yeah, always liked him. Always would see him be like, oh, Cole Hauser. And then Yellowstone happens, and that's that. Recasting Couch Director of City. I'd like to combine this with what role would Philip Seymour Hoffman have played and volunteer him for Harvard Ponytail Guy, playing him as Freddie from Talented Mr. Ripley.
Oh, yeah.
I just think the movie's better.
Or his character from Scent of a Woman.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You guys down with that? Can we
I
move
like
on?
that a lot,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Did this movie have a porn parody? What do you guys think? Oh, it did.
Yeah.
And it was called Goodwill Humping.
Can I suggest a better title? Good
Well, that
MILF
was the
Hunting.
title. Goodwill.
Good MILF Hunting.
Good MILF Hunting. Oh, interesting.
I looked up Goodwill
That's almost
Humping.
too creative for porn, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked up Goodwill Humping on my Spotify computer today. So
Oh,
just
Jesus.
FYI.
All right. I'll work it out later with them. Half-assed internet research. Will's address you can briefly see when they go to see the other custodians. It was 357 Q Street, 3D in Southie. There you go. Damon started writing this movie in a playwriting class in Harvard. Was a 40-page script, and then eventually Affleck developed it with him, and the rest is history. Cambridge scenes: bow and arrow, the tasty, and Au Bon Pan. Those are the three, and a lot of this was sadly filmed in Toronto. The interior shots. Minnie Driver's character Skylar,
Yes.
named after Damon's college girlfriend, who left Damon for Lars Ulrich,
Yes.
Metallica drummer,
He's
been
not
a
as
lot
old as
of-
before
Lars
filming
Ulrich.
began.
Yeah.
That's a tough trade for her. Borderline Luka Doncic level type of trade. She could have bought it on Damon going up. Instead, ends up with the drummer from Metallica, one of the most dysfunctional bands of the late 90s.
I did spend quite a lot of time on metal websites today from 2000, like 1998 to 2000, trying to track that relationship. It was rocky, yeah.
Imagine hitting on her post Lars and Matt Damon and just being a regular guy. Like, who does your auto insurance?
Apex Mountain. CR, you want to tell the audience what Apex Mountain is?
Sure. It is the best something has ever been in a movie. Let's say that. Or in real life.
That's not what it is. We still 375 movies. It's when something had the most juice in its career it ever would have had.
Why don't we call it Juice Mountain?
That's disgusting.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. So Damon and Affleck know. Would you go Red Line Trolleys? Has it ever been used better
Bunker
in a movie?
Hill's my answer for like 4 of the categories.
Bunker Hill?
It's also like a haunting image. So
Would you go with Gus for this one?
I have Gus Van Sant.
Okay. Yeah.
Apex Mountain.
L Street Tavern?
math,
Math.
this or pie.
Or Beautiful Minds.
Beautiful Mind.
Yeah.
Well,
Is that math or is that
Apex
yarn?
Mountain for the the
true.
history of math, like not the
Like
theory
all
of relativity,
math. Yeah, all math.
No, we're not like including real formulas. I'm just talking about
which
Math
are
in a
erotic,
movie.
as we know.
like
Math
there's
in
a
a
lot.
movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we haven't really done it. He's apparently the smartest math person in the world.
Oh, we have this coming up in
Okay.
Picking Nits.
All right.
Yeah, we have some nits.
No one had found out prior to this.
Nah.
Okay.
No special. He never advanced in a class, nothing. Nobody noticed. Minnie Driver?
I think so.
Yes,
Oscar
gets
nominated.
Yeah.
Let me just offer up Gross Point Blank
I mean, she's
Okay.
dynamite.
as a part of the conversation. I'm not.
She's amazing, but not as much Juice Mountain.
By the way, again, maybe Apex for accents, not just because the Boston part of it, but in
All
this one we
accents.
get. She's from London, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
She again, we've lost. I mean, I don't want to get into immigration right now, but we've lost so many roles to the English. Which
Right,
I
it's
thought
true.
we sorted out in the backyard over here a couple hundred years ago. But she
Right over there. Yeah.
She's from London, so I didn't know that at first. I was like, God, she's nailing that. Makes sense. But then she gives us a little Irish, right?
Yeah.
She gives us a little Russian in a James Bond
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
And then, even in Gross Point Blank, she throws a few Jamaican phrases at you. So, 5 Tool.
Her Juice Mountain's right around here. Juice Mountain sounds like it would be opening on Newberry Street.
Don't make
between
fun
like
of
C
me
and D.
because I am just trying to explain it. Juice,
Yeah.
what emotion
No, I
juice
like
doesn't
Juice
make any
Mountain.
sense. Yeah.
Juice Mountain closed. Damn it.
Please stop saying
Like Juice
Juice Mountain, please.
Stellan Skarsgård? He's been in a lot of stuff.
Andor, yes.
Yeah,
What about
Andor?
Lars von Trier's Breaking the Waves?
Ronan.
Oh,
Yeah,
Ronan.
Ronan.
Yeah.
Dune
I
Part
like
2?
that.
Dune Part 2 is great.
Hey, what would you say for Miramax for Apex Mountain? Is it
Yeah.
probably next year or
Dig in
Shakespeare
here,
in
Sean.
Love?
We don't, let's not. I don't.
No, for when they had the most power in the movie
It's
business.
They won
Shakespeare in
Shakespeare in Love. They won Best Picture.
Don't get all
Yeah.
pissy with me.
Well, we've already done a lot of Harvey, I feel like, on this pod.
I'm just saying that Shakespeare in Love is probably the most
yeah.
juice they have.
They beat Saving Private Ryan for Best Picture. That was
How about
big.
Howard Zinn?
Yeah.
Isn't Chalamet's
Yes.
character in Lady Bird reading A People's History of the United States like on a car?
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think would be
that's good.
maybe higher.
Cheap tracksuits?
No.
Pretty good.
Sopranos.
Okay.
Sopranos.
The Mass Pike. We get the Mass Pike, the entire end credits with Elliott Smith for like 4 minutes. Now it's the two-lane part, but
Yeah, but what was that shot? Like, was that the hardest shot in the entire movie? And then somebody was like, yeah, we're going to do it in the part where everybody leaves.
right. Yeah, was it like a helicopter flying low? What was that?
Yeah. I
It was
don't know.
probably a
It's
truck driving behind him, right? And then, like,
Maybe, but I mean, if you think about the budget for this film and how simple most of it was to shoot, I had to think somebody would be like, why are we actually making the most difficult shot of the entire movie on something that no one is going to watch?
My last question is for the audience. Would you go Boston Common, Apex Mountain for a movie, or would you go? I call it Common. I call it the Common.
Did somebody just try to correct you?
Well, they know what I mean. But would
I'm
you
sorry,
say the
guys.
Common?
That's the end of
this
the
is
show.
it?
Thanks for coming out.
Okay.
thank you, Philadelphia.
But would you say, or would you go something else?
I think the TV show Boston Common is Apex Boston Common, which I still can't believe wasn't picked up. Season.
Cruise or Hanks?
Cruise.
Cruise.
In
I
what
think
part?
Hanks would have done a good McGuire, but I think young Cruise would be a perfect. Cruise, I'm sure Cruise was kicking himself. He's like, I've never thought to be a janitor who's also a genius.
Where do I run? Am I fast?
Yeah, they would have put he would have run home from Cambridge.
Rather
the
than
T's closed.
Because I think it's really funny they went with a choice where Damon's still putting his clothes on the green in Harvard.
Yeah.
Like his shirt is off, and he couldn't put his fucking boots on. He was in such a hurry. Like, I get to walk of shame. It's like, dude, lace
Right.
him up first.
I know.
And I know you look pretty good with your shirt
It's a
off.
violation.
Cruz would have been running.
I think young Hanks could have pulled off Chucky potentially, but I think it's Cruise. All right, the Sean Fennessey Award for stealth homage that gives every movie nerd a criteria orgasm. What do you got, Sean?
I have 2 runners-up. The first one is the job interview that Will sends Chucky on is for a company called Holden and McNeil, which is the name of the character that Ben Affleck plays, Holden McNeil in Chasing Amy, which was released in the same year.
I got some applause.
Thank you.
The crowd's
That was
back
a
on
gasp.
Sean. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The "How do you like them apples" line is actually a very subtle homage to the phrase that Jake Giddey says in Chinatown when he says that after a joke.
Yep.
And then the best one is when Morgan says, "I swallowed a bug" in the Harvard bar scene. It's a reference to something that happens in Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now, where during a scene, Francis Ford Coppola is shooting Marlon Brando and he has to stop because he swallows a bug while he's performing and says to Francis Ford Coppola, "I swallowed a bug."
Wow.
And we should have mentioned, apparently Affleck ad-libbed like half of his lines in this movie. Like they would just write, in the script it would be like, Morgan comes downstairs, and then he would come down and just have a baseball glove and make it seem like he was just jerking off into the baseball glove.
Yeah,
And they would never have any idea what he was doing.
Seeing that scene again, I was like, Does that move the story
Yeah.
at all?
If you're Cole Hauser, are you like, so this guy just gets like all these lines? Like,
I have a nerd one for you. The dedication of the movie at the end. Like, there's no way anyone, like, it's such a young guy thing to do. To be like, this goes out to Ginsburg and Burroughs.
It's like the last thing at the end of the credits.
It's the last thing, a dedication to those guys.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have noticed it because today I was like, how long does this shot go again? And then I saw that dedication, and I was like, that's something we're going to show everybody.
All right, we're going to pick some nits. So nobody else in this MIT class could solve the math problem.
It was really hard.
you're not asking a bunch of math whizzes up
Well-
here, so yeah.
So Lambo's like, I'm going to create this problem. I'm going to put it on chalkboard and make you guys all feel like shit and then try to fuck you later. That's his plan as a math teacher.
That's a great point.
Like, that's it? This is the guy inspiring me at MIT?
Do you think anybody's checked the actual math?
Yes, you can look. Yeah.
There's
some
interesting
deep nerd
Reddit
stuff.
threads that are like, it's not that hard, or like,
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I could do this easily.
Can you believe you used that one?
Second meeting, they go, he's like, instead of the Will and Sean, he's like, let's go for a walk. And then they go from Bunker Hill Community College all the way to the Common. That's like a 10-minute cab ride if there's traffic, maybe like 15. So how did they get there? What did they talk about on the way? I just have a lot of questions. I know they're doing movie devices with that, but it's a lot of silence on the way there.
Yeah.
What do you have, CR?
picking nits, why is Will pitching at the batting cages? And if this is Boston, aren't there a bunch of guys like, get the fuck out of the way, I'm trying to hit, like, what are you doing over there? You know, like, I also feel kind of in the same vein.
I've never seen anyone allowed to actually just start pitching to his buddy.
Yeah. And they're not even like working on Chucky's swing. They're like doing all this jerking around.
Yeah, but see, I think once we saw Affleck shoot and on the way back, it was like, uh-oh. That's why they had Damon throwing.
Yeah.
And then they never let Affleck take a cut.
Yeah. The only other one I had was when Skylar is talking about like, I'm a basketball player. I should be in the NBA. I feel like a guy with Will's temper would have been like, you don't know what MLK has to do to get those guys ready every night. Antoine Walker and Dana Barrows. There's a lot of personalities in that locker room. You couldn't do that.
What do you have, Sean?
By 1997, wouldn't Will Hunting just be a hacker? And wouldn't he be making millions of dollars hacking if he's the smartest guy in the world?
Because it's like year 3 of when the
we got
modern
Windows,
internet's in
you
shape.
know? Yeah, we got MS-DOS.
Versus like being a spy guy?
Like, he's fucking broke.
Right.
He's living in that building. The first shot of the movie is like that old lady in the rocking chair, you know?
It's a good point.
It's like, you don't want to live there.
Well, when they start writing the script, the internet's not even the internet yet, so maybe they could have zagged.
He could have gone to the
out of that.
library, you know, gotten on one of those computers.
What do you got, Russillo?
Would Casey or Cole Hauser call ice on Minnie? Like, dude, she's fucking weird. Like, where she talks funny. Maybe if they did it now.
Small nitpick. Cole Hauser's character is named Bill. Could we have done better? Could we have gone with like a Murph?
Murph is
like a Fitzy.
Right.
Patrick.
His last
like,
name's McBride, right? Like, in terms of like, that's what it's credited.
Would
as.
you call him Billy?
Would you call him Mickey then?
Yeah, something. Here's my big one. So, the end of the movie when Affleck has this big scene and Will Hunting's not there, the guys are going to pick him up to drive him to work. They just gave him a fucking car. Why are they picking him up? He has a car.
There's also another car there, too, which begs the other question. Was Will Hunting a hoarder?
Well, also, he has a car, and they pull up, and then Chucky's amazed that he's not there. His car's not there. You just gave him the car.
That's really good.
This is why you're you.
Is there any other nitpicks?
Because I wonder when they wrote the script, they're like, okay, the end is, we're building to the end where he chases the girl, he drives to California, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, he doesn't have a car. You know, so maybe that was like a last minute thing. Like, hey, we have to have some moment where he gets
added
a
in
car
there.
for his 21st birthday.
Possible.
But you're right, that doesn't make sense.
Can I raise one more?
Yeah.
Why doesn't Will just call Skylar and be like, hey, babe, like I really want to come out to California, but I got this job. I'm making $84,000 a year working for McNeil. Let me just like get one paycheck and I'll fly out and meet you. Like, why does he have to drive? Like, just work for 2 weeks and then go see her.
He really likes the car.
But as we know, he's going to get picked up by Chucky when it breaks down.
I think other than the fighting, morally, they're pretty good. Because Chucky should be dealing drugs.
Yeah.
Right? You mentioned the hacking part of it. So maybe because he's like, I at least got to give him my 2 weeks.
Will's like 6 weeks away from starting a serious Hold'em poker obsession anyway. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Sequel, prequel, prestige TV, all black cast, or untouchable. So, all black cast will be interesting. The before, what was the last Before Sunrise movie called?
Before midnight.
30 years later, would you be interested in any of these characters? Catching up with Will Hunting in his mid-50s?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So what's he doing?
Well, I mean, in my version, he's still a janitor in the Midwest, and they're all looking for him.
Based on what we saw from him inside that bounce castle, I feel like Bill is in UFC right now. Choking guys out.
Would you want to catch up with these guys in 2025?
I know what's already happened to the other three, so that's not a mystery. But I just cannot express how much Will is going to hate going out.
Yeah.
In Santa Monica.
Right. He's at Barney's Beanery.
Yeah, he's going to be
pissed.
like, dude, what? You know, it's just not.
Yeah. Tries out Sonny McLean's.
He's not going to like it.
Hates it.
What would you think of Manhattan Beach, though?
Oh. He'd probably like it.
Yeah, I think he'd be all right there.
He'd find his people, hang out with some
especially
kings.
97. I mean, granted, he's not going to have the down payment, so maybe he can get some sort of government loan, lower rate.
Is this movie better with Wayne Jenkins, Danny Trejo, Doris Burke, Sam Jackson, Nell, Byron Mayo, Barney Cousins, Tony Romo, Harley Mays, Chris Collinsworth, Daniel Plainview, Long Legs, or Wilfred Brimley in The Firm? What do you have, CR?
I do like the idea of as Will and Skylar are breaking up, and Chris Collinsworth's just like, oh, Mike, he's only breaking up with Skylar because of the generational trauma. It's led to self-loathing. Don Shula always told me, you gotta love yourself before you love somebody else. And then as Skylar's crying, the Fox NFL injury jazz plays. Or we could do, goddamn, Will! I didn't know I was working with Superbrain. You out here solving intermediate graph theory with an adjacency matrix? And closing on Skylar, you better stop getting in fights with Carmine Scarpaglia in public, or you're going away a long fucking time, big boy.
You're not following that, Sean?
What if Daniel Plainview was Sean McGuire?
Was who?
Dr. Sean McGuire. And he said,
so if I asked you about art, you'd probably give me the skinny on every art book ever written. Michelangelo, you know a lot about him. Life's work, political aspirations, him and the Pope, sexual orientations, the whole works, right?
Nice.
I don't have one of those.
Okay. I'm going to bring you in, though, for mine.
Okay.
I did want to mention Tony Romo watching the ending going, he's going to see a better girl, Jim. He's going to see a better. Since we're in Boston, I think we have to add Felger and Maz to this. Do you want to be Felger or Maz?
No, I think you know what you want to do, so I'll be
right.
Maz.
I think Maz goes, I don't know why we consider him a genius for solving one math problem, Mike.
Wait, are you Maz?
No, and then Felger goes,
Okay. You're
can
both.
jump. Yeah, I guess I'm doing both.
All right.
You want to?
Because I was like, man, that's a high-pitched Felger. You're going to have to go even higher.
Do you want to? You want to be Felger?
I really don't want to do anything except watch.
I think Felger says, I mean, he got lucky at a chalkboard in the hallway with nobody looking. Can you do it every time, Tony? We have no idea if Will Hunting can do that. We don't know if he's an alpha dog. He can't do it, Tony. Nah, Felger. All right. I just feel like they would disparage his credentials in math somehow.
Yeah, look, hard markers in this town. So I still think there's, like, what is he capable of?
Will Hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't know. He hasn't won any playoff games. He didn't get the Eastern Conference Finals or the M
Are you
Finals
saying
MVP.
this is regular season math?
Yeah, it's regular season math only. CR, just one Oscar. Who gets it?
I'm pretty fine with Robin Williams getting the Oscar.
Okay.
Here. Yeah.
No Damon?
Yeah. Well, we're just doing one Oscar, so I'm good for.
All right.
Robin
Fantasy?
Williams.
I said Damon.
Elliott Smith?
Great.
Oh.
Great shout.
I got Damon. Probably unanswerable questions. Russillo, Chucky or Jim, better Boston buddy sidekick? If you had to pick.
Oh, no. Chucky. You can't... look, Jem's more fun.
Jem's more fun.
Jem's like... Yeah, right. Bullshit. If you had to rent a house in the Cape, or you rent it with Chucky or Jem? Chucky.
Okay, I agree. CR, what happens if Affleck and Damon switch parts?
I think it would be good, but it would be nowhere near what we get. I think Damon probably has access to like a little bit more of that golden boy vulnerability, and Affleck is the perfect, like, I'm kind of happy-go-lucky, like, here for a good time guy.
Sean?
Damon is surprisingly good at playing dumb, so maybe he could have pulled that part off. I wouldn't have thought that, but then...
But can you see Affleck solving math problems in a chalkboard?
He does it in The Accountant.
That's true.
I mean, he's basically...
We've learned,
He's
yeah.
a genius in that movie.
I can see
I
it.
don't think it's as good of a movie, but it's an interesting thought experience.
Just feels weird the bigger guy's good at math.
Fair. Any other unanswerables? We did a lot of them.
Yeah, no, what happens if this movie's set after 04 and after the Red Sox win this series? Like, does everybody just take their
Game
temperature
5
down?
ALCS, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think there's like a nitpicking thing. If he turns 21 in this movie, it's 97, whatever. So that means he is born in 76, and he's freaking out about Game 6. But the thing is we know here, like, I was 0, or I was a couple months old when that game happened, and I knew about that game. Like, I knew about that game in a way that I don't think people would understand how you could be conscious of this game that happened before you were born, because, at the time, it was pretty much considered as the greatest game in the history of baseball. So I think there have been people that have given that whole part, like, it doesn't match up, the time doesn't match up, and it's like, well, no, you don't understand, because if you don't grow up with that, you don't understand that every kid that grew up a Red Sox fan knew about that game, even if it happened years before he was born.
Yeah, and it's a weird one because we lost the series. And yet it felt like we won because of the Fisk homer, but they lost the next game.
I think when I was really little, I was like, it blew my mind when I was 7. It was like, they lost that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough times. The Zawant Nair Award would happen the next day. I have Chucky marries the girl who made fun of his Tootsie Roll. I think they end up together. I think Morgan gets banned from the Fleet Center for 5 years for something happened in a preseason game against Toronto. And then, so CR, I had Will spends 3 weeks in California, punches out a Lakers fan who made a Patino joke, drives back to Boston, car breaks down in Cleveland, never seen again.
It's basically
So
what
we're
I had,
basically
yeah.
great minds.
Yeah.
What do you have for Zawant Nair? Anything? What happens the next day?
Well, no, I mean, I kind of already hit on it, that I think he ends up in Springfield and Chucky comes to get him. And then, Springfield, I think, is actually late 90s scarier than Southie would ever be. And those guys would overestimate their Southie upbringing.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, we got this. It's like Springfield's a whole...
Yeah, they think it's like a 12 seed against a 5 or something.
Right.
They don't realize.
Like, I know you think you're going to win.
Right. Sean, Zawant Nair, anything?
Skylar dumps him for Steve Jobs.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
Comes the First Lady of Apple.
Yeah.
What piece of memorabilia would you want or not want from this movie, Russillo?
Not the glove.
Yeah. It's a not the glove.
You said, yeah.
The painting would be interesting.
Yeah, I like Robin Williams' socks jacket is great.
Yeah, I had that too. Coach Finstock Award, we're almost done. Best life lesson. It's not your fault.
But sometimes it is.
This is my whole thing.
I actually think there's a lot of people walking around thinking it isn't their fault.
Yeah.
So,
Matt Damon picked a fight with Carmine. I mean, that was his fault.
Right.
He
Didn't have to
pick
do that.
fight.
Yeah, and he's never run into him since he was 5. Like, that was the day.
I have, you could be one of the smartest people alive and still not know a damn thing about life is the message of the movie. I think Bet on Yourself with Damon and Affleck is kind of the bigger lesson from the movie, right? These guys were like, we're starring in this, we're making it, it has to be, we have to be in it, and they do it. And then don't answer yes or no if somebody asks if you like apples, I think would be another life lesson. Just say I'm out.
Well,
No
Granny
thanks.
Smith's, but not Macintosh, really.
Yeah. What do you have for best double feature choice?
I have Air just to bookend it, and plus after you get to the end of Good Will Hunting, I don't know if you want to get like super serious and watch Ordinary People or something. So I have Air. It's lighter.
Fantasy?
I picked The Martian just for the Matt Damon being a genius canon.
Oh yeah.
Russillo?
Armageddon. To give Ben a little bit more chance to shine.
Yeah.
I had The Town. I mean, it's then Affleck's the star. We're in Boston. We get to be in Charlestown again. Who won the movie?
I have Damon, even though he doesn't get the Oscar, but Damon is the star of the movie and the writer of the movie, and he's great in this. So, Damon.
I think it's a rare case where it has to be 2 people because Matt and Ben both win.
Yeah, we have a rule for this is the last category, who won the movie. We always say it can't be 2 people. I don't know how this can be not the 2 of them. I think it has to be, right? Especially like when you go watch the Oscars speech. Like this is like they fucking did it. It took them 5 years. They made the movie. They made it happen.
They did it and they stayed.
Yeah.
Because you would have shorted them as a stock after that speech. You'd be like,
Right.
okay, well, this isn't going to work. And it works. And they've done, I mean, it's just the way people always think. And probably in a weird way, it's like, okay, cool, you got this thing, but now go away. Like, I don't want you to really have this work. Look, I don't know, they're not complete outsiders because they had roles and other stuff. So normally if we were just talking about a character or whatever, Robin Williams nails every single scene. But I just can't imagine what that feeling would be like to be in your 20s, have this idea, pursue this thing. Everybody's telling you it's not going to work. All the moments where you're like convinced it's never going to work, and then you're sitting there holding an award for best original screenplay, and then back it up with 3 decades of work. I don't know how you split it up.
Yeah, Affleck was the youngest person ever to win the screenwriting Oscar.
Still
I
is.
got that right, Sean?
You got that right.
Jesus.
Yes.
How many games are the Red Sox going to win this year?
91.
How many do they have to win before you pot about them?
Oh.
Gambling's legal in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I have multiple Red Sox bets. I think they're going to be good, including the 90-plus win bets, which was like plus 136. I also, the NFL over-unders came out today, which you cover on my podcast. Pats 7.5, fucking over. I did that. We're not going to be 4 wins better? I mean, what the fuck? We're going like at least 8 and 9. They're saying Diggs' ACL is untorn now?
Who's they?
Who is they?
Who's
His
they?
ACL is solid?
His dad.
Was it Dr. Sean McGuire who told you that?
It's not your fault,
Dr. Bill. I know, I think it's great when a receiver who's already been on like 2 teams in the last 12 months and is still available, and you give him $26 million guaranteed in the first year, who he seems to get along with everybody.
Yeah.
Can you do it any better than that?
Yeah. And he's 32, turning 33. It's
Producer
exciting.
Craig Horlbeck, who's here, his counter, because I was saying I wasn't totally happy with the Diggs signing. He's like, you don't have a receiver, was his counter. I'm like, I had no counter to that counter. So I don't know. I'm super excited for the Pats. Oh, so Tatum, Drake May, who's number 1 right now? I don't know. Okay. Oh, Pritch, please.
Boston.
That's in episode 8 of the Celtics doc.
Yeah, episode 10. Thank you to Loon by Atlassian for having us. Thanks to House of Blues. It's really cool to be here. I mean, I was here when it was called Avalon, but it's good. They did a good job of this. We almost did it across the street at MGM. I kind of wish we had, but I thought it was awesome. Hey, well, because we had a lot of people that wanted tickets, so I felt bad.
But thanks
this was,
for having us.
No, this was perfect. I like seeing the people up there. I just wish we had more people. CR?
Yeah.
What's next for you?
Well, we're going to be at Coolidge all weekend, hanging out. Good fellas.
Yeah, so
and
come
Heat
down
tomorrow.
TheRinger.com/events if you want tickets. We're probably going to talk after a couple of the movies, but we're doing Heat, Goodfellas. Good Will Hunting is actually Saturday night.
Sean's going to be doing therapy for people for free on the street.
I've been studying the
wear a
McGuire
cardigan.
method. Yeah, I'm
That would
excited.
be quite the meet and greet. Sit down.
Russillo, what's next for you?
We got an Uber headed to the Squire, about 15.
Okay. Fantasy?
I'm going to drink a few more beers tonight, I think.
All right.
All right.
Boston, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.